Everyone thinks Washington leaks like a sieve, and it does, but no one talks about how the game really works. Well, I'm Tara Palmeri, and I've been a journalist for over 15 years, and some would call me an equal opportunity assassin because I have no allegiance to either political party. I just go after the story, the scoop. I want the truth. Like how I broke the story that Hunter Biden lied on his gun form and that his then girlfriend, the widow of his brother Beau, threw out the gun in a garbage can across from a school that led to his indictment. I was also banned from covering Trump's victory party because of some critical coverage of some of his top staffers. At the same time, my coverage was accurate when I said that he was winning and Kamala Harris was losing. But if you want access in Washington, you play by the rules, and I've personally never been good at that. That means you don't write about the stories that your sources don't want you to write about, and you certainly don't write about your sources, even if they're the ones who are abusing power. So in this interview with the Young Turks' Cenk Uygur, I pull back the curtain on how the press protects people that they should be exposing, and why that may be the cost of staying in the room. It might also explain why you didn't get much detailed reporting on Biden's cognitive decline until after he was out of office. Washington is a very transactional place, and that includes the media.
Tara Palmeri joins me. She's an independent journalist, author of The Red Letter on Substack, host of the Tara Palmeri Show. But she was also at ABC News, Politico, CNN, Puck, New York Post, Washington Examiner, you name it. She was a White House reporter covering the Trump administration in the first term for Politico. And Sean Spicer said, quote, "She's an idiot with no real sources," which is hilarious. Tara, thanks for joining us, and I'll ask you right away. What do you say to Sean Spicer back?
I just say consider the source.
Is he suing you or something?
He threatened to, but yeah, that went away pretty quickly. I don't think it would hold up in court. And also, again, consider the source, Sean Spicer. So.
Yeah, I hear you. We actually had him on the show recently. We should get you guys together, or maybe we shouldn't.
I don't know about that one. I don't know why I got under his skin. I gotta say, it was really strange to me. He really just didn't like me very much, and I felt like I was pretty fair. But
yeah,
well.
So Tara, that's actually part of what I want to start with. You also covered the Epstein files, and I want to get to that too. That's super interesting. But we had on here Sam Donaldson, probably nearly 20 years ago on the Young Turks, and he told a great story about Roone Arledge, legendary, head of ABC News for a long time. That when Sam Donaldson was the White House reporter for ABC at the time, whenever Reagan called to complain about Donaldson, Roone Arledge would give him a raise. And then later,
that's the way it should be.
Yes. So and later when he covered the Clinton administration, Roone Arledge did the same exact thing. So it didn't matter if it was a Republican or a Democrat.
Right.
But if the administration complained about you, got a raise. So I'm a little afraid that we've lost those days. But you've covered it. You've been in a lot of mainstream media organizations or legacy media or whatever we want to call them. So what's your sense of it? Are we still as aggressive against both parties and the powerful, or not as much?
It's hard because there are these very insider organizations now. There's so many of them. It's so fragmented, and they really are selling on access, right? There's just so many news organizations, from Politico to Punchbowl to Axios, and everybody is just trying to get that last scrap, that last little scoop, right? And everybody wants access. And President Trump is obviously not only threatening to cut off access, but he's also threatening to sue on top of all that. And it is suing. Look what happened with CBS having to settle. And so it's putting these major news organizations in a position that is not choosing news, right? They're choosing their business over the news, actual, investigative journalism, and bringing information to the public, I think. And that's not to say, that everyone is corrupt and you can't believe anything that you read in the news. I do think there are a lot of really well-meaning journalists, but I think sometimes when the story gets all the way to management, they can slow roll it if they know it's gonna be a problem. They look at you like you are a problem when you bring in the hard stories. It would be a lot easier for them if you didn't. And so you really have to find some bosses that really believe in you, that want to make trouble. I mean, a good journalist makes trouble.
Yes, yes. Couldn't agree more. All right, so let's break that down because you said a lot of interesting things there. So people often talk about access, but I think the folks at home, they don't know why the media organizations are obsessed with access. Why? What is it about access that's so important to these media organizations?
I personally don't understand why they're so obsessed with access to President Trump when he tweets everything out. There is no mystery. There is no he answers the phone for anyone. I called him 2 weeks ago. He answered the phone and we spoke. I mean, he's literally the most successful person of all time. So this idea of trying to get in with the administration is silly. Plus, I don't think he really respects journalists too that are that are playing just for access to him. He wants to be loved. Like that's part of the Trump psychology, right? Trying to win daddy back. And that includes with journalists. Why do you think Maggie Haberman has been one of the most successful journalists at the New York Times? President Trump can't win her over. And their relationship goes way back. Actually, Maggie and I used to work in the same newsroom at the New York Post. And that's when I met Donald Trump when I was 22 years old. And he used to call me all the time and ask me to write about him running for president. And I literally had to say, Mr. Trump, we can't write about you anymore running for president because you're not. And so that's all to say is like this president, his drug is media. Like that is his heroin.
Yeah.
He loves to talk to journalists. That's why he picks up the phone at midnight.
First of all, Tara, he called you when you were 22. All the time. Wow.
I was working at Page 6.
Yep.
I was working at Page 6, which is in the New York, to him being in the tabloids, in the gossip column, there was nothing higher.
Oh,
and
for
sure, I was the 22-year-old working at Page 6.
Yes, okay. And both of those things are things he's very attracted to. Anyways, but you're right. The Page 6 stuff with Trump is hilarious. When he would pretend to be John Barron and call in about how he was dating Madonna and stuff. Doesn't get any funnier than that.
He stopped pretending with me. I think he was at his political stage at that point and thought like, write this down. Like I'm about to be the president of the United States. It was not, it was less about his love life. He was married to Melania. I guess his Playboy days were allegedly behind him, not so much as we saw, but it was a bit of a different agenda.
But okay, so with Trump, you don't need that much access and he's gonna give it to you anyway. But is it because the editors, the publishers think overall in politics, breaking a story is so important to their business model, and the only way to break stories is if you have access to the politicians with those stories? Is that why they're catering to them more?
I think so. I also think with President Trump, I mean, it just gets so much more complicated too. I think you saw what happened with Politico, where they cut the subscriptions the government agencies had to the Politico Pro. That's a huge part of their business model. He can be vindictive. He cut the Associated Press out of the pool, and the Associated Press, their business model relies on them putting out wires, being present, physically present at events. And if they're not able to be there to cover them, but that puts them at a huge disadvantage when they're competing against Reuters. And so I just think he really knows how to play with the business interests of the press. And I've always believed, though, access journalism is not the best journalism. Even when Spicer and I'm not even gonna go into it, but even when I was reporting mostly from the outside of the White House, I still felt that I was still breaking stories because I had more time to pick up the phone or to go out and meet with people who don't want to be seen talking to me, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, those are the best sources. And those are the best stories. I mean, it's the real shoe leather journalism. The people who are sitting in the briefing room, raising their hand and asking the question in front of everyone in America, the performance of it all, the performative nature of it, they're not breaking any big story. But the people who are breaking the big stories, they're behind the scenes hitting the phones and trying to get the scoop. And I think what you see in a lot of the briefing room is jousting. It's important. It's important jousting. We need that for public debate, and we need to hold people in power to account. I would never say it's not important, but there's a place for all of it. And I think we all just need to understand where we sit into this ecosystem and make sure that the business interests don't become more important than the public interest, which is public service, which is delivering information. But yeah, access journalism has always been a problem.
Yeah. So you mentioned they might slow roll some hard stories. So in this era, it's easy to kind of figure out what a hard story might be, something critical of Trump, right? But can you give us, outside of Trump, minus Trump, examples of what might be hard stories where they'd go, this is gonna cause some issues for us?
It's hard to say because I haven't worked in a newsroom in a while that I mean, when I remember when I worked at Politico, for example, and I was covering Joe Biden, and I broke the story about Hunter Biden and the gun and really the thing that got him indicted. That was a lot. That took a very long time to get that published. I got the feeling that it was being slow rolled. It was at the beginning of the administration. A lot of my colleagues didn't like it. I mean, newsrooms are political on both sides. And I've never been one to pick a side based on the politics or who's in power and who's not. I don't like groupthink, and I tend to gravitate towards the stories that are outside of the groupthink, or maybe others are a little afraid to touch. But I've seen it on both sides. Now, I was only at Puck for I think like a month or two into this Trump administration, but I never felt that they tried to stop me from reporting anything really. I was pretty tough on the Trump campaign, although I was honest. I was like, I was one of the few reporters that was saying they're winning. People hated that, and people hated when you reported that. But it was true. Yeah, I was like, this is what's happening. And I even on Reddit, people are like, what's wrong with this woman? We hate her. And then guys, these are sometimes, it's an inconvenient truth. But the Trump team also hated me because I was talking about how they were making money and the drama behind the scenes and the concerns and the messy ground game. I mean, I think report and then let the pieces fall where they could fall, right?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of sound like a reporter, where you're supposed to accurately report. These are the problems that they're having, but they are winning, and they were winning.
Yeah, they did win.
Believe me, I know. We took tremendous heat for saying he's winning. The polling is clear. Certainly in the beginning, in the middle, certainly when Biden was in the race, it wasn't even close, right? And so, but people often don't want to hear the truth. Okay, one more thing about legacy media before we move to the files. For my taste, they don't cover money in politics almost at all, right? And I don't get it. I mean, I think I do, but from a news perspective, I don't get it, because 95% of the time, the person with more money wins the race. And I wouldn't report that like, oh, it's a wonderful thing. Oh, this person is leading the race because they've raised more money. I would wonder, well, yeah, then who do they owe, right? But that part of the story never, ever, ever gets told. And then in the legislation, oh my God, the lobbyists have massive, massive influence, and they pretty much tell the politicians what to do. But whenever I read legacy media, that's not the story I see. The story I see is about how they're having a debate about policy or ideology. So what do you make of that? Why do you think that is not as emphasized in legacy media?
Okay, so the sources to the stories, a lot of them, are the consultants around these politicians, right? The lobbyists, for example. And if you start writing about their money, you will be cut off. That's who really cuts you off. That's who really takes away your access. Those are the people who really make it difficult for you. If you mention, they have pass-through accounts that are making millions of dollars are coming in there from a super PAC, or you talk about, who's donating to their PACs or this or that. I mean, Ken Vogel at the New York Times is a great reporter. He's really on this. He really has covered money and influence in politics for a really long time. But a lot of journalists, especially beat reporters, they fall into the trap of not wanting to cover their sources because their sources benefit from this kind of big money, PAC money, from lobbying money. They benefit from all that. It's a swamp. The swamp feeds itself, and the journalists are part of it too.
Yeah, that's a great answer. There's a couple of things in there that I hadn't considered. Since I'm not in that world, the power of the consultants is something I read about but didn't experience in the way that you described.
It's like a mafia. It really is. No, it's not a mafia, and people don't die because of it, but their careers can be ended in a lot of ways, right? I think there's a real power of the consultancy class, but they're also blamed. They're always the first to be blamed too when a candidate loses. I mean, there's a circular firing squad happening right now within the Biden world and the Harris world. How can you spend over $1 billion and still lose, right? Who made money? Which PAC made all this money? Who cleaned up at the end? There's a lot of anger at that super PAC. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but it was run by Biden's, yes, Future Forward. It was run by Biden's former communications director, Anita Dunn. Where did all that money go? That's what everyone always says, right? But that someone walked away a lot richer. And the candidate loses. And that makes people angry because you can walk away rich as long as your candidate wins, because once you're in power, then everyone gets wealthy through the influence game. Access to power, again.
That's so sick.
It's all about getting that. It's all about that access game. And it works for the journalists too. I mean, that's part of the reason why I don't live in Washington. I just think that there's something about it. It rubs off on you. I go there frequently, but for work, to do reporting, to meet with sources. But at the end of the day, I think you got to get out of there, take a shower, and rearrange, your life and realize this is not normal.
Yeah, no. That is a really interesting way of framing it. I think that's right. I think those, and if you notice, by the way, for those of you at home, how many stories have been written where they named the consultants that kept a lot of money and got super rich off this campaign, even though Kamala Harris lost? I haven't seen any. I don't know if there's been one or two, but I've seen zero.
It's rare. You just see it from time to time. My former colleague Teddy Schleifer at the New York Times, he's written about it. I've written about it as well, particularly after the campaign when people realized that Kamala Harris was in debt after all of that. I mean, people were furious. Got tons of phone calls. But yeah, a lot of people they're not really willing to sell out their sources. And believe me, if someone's a former communications director and they're working a super PAC, they know how to work journalists to make sure their names are not in the story. So,
that's another huge part of it. Once you're a source, you get more protected.
Thanks for listening to the Tara Palmeri Show. I want to thank my producer, Eric Abinate, my booker, Jane Fusco, and my team of researchers, Abby Baker and Luke Radel, and my social media manager, Sarah Carney. If you like this show, please follow it, subscribe, leave a written review. I'd really appreciate that, and share it with your friends. You can get more of my independent reporting by going to tarapalmeri.com and signing up for my newsletter, The Red Letter. It'll come straight to your inbox, and if you become a paid subscriber, it's a way to support my independent journalism. I'll be back again soon.